Good morning, dear Excellency Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Landsbergis, also Minister of Education of Ukraine and Science, Mr. Oksay Lisovy. Good morning, distinguished guests, colleagues, and partners. Warm welcome to the annual Lithuanian Development Cooperation Conference, Building Resilience Through International Partnership. Today, we gather to reflect on the transformative power of partnerships in addressing the world's most pressing challenges, from Russia's war against Ukraine to climate change and disinformation. Our discussions will highlight the resilience-building efforts within Lithuania's development cooperation agenda and showcase the inspiring stories of cooperation that drive progress towards a more sustainable and secure future. We are honored to be joined by esteemed leaders and experts, and I look forward to insightful exchange during the day. To officially open the conference, we are privileged to hear from several distinguished speakers, and please join me in welcoming His Excellency Gabrielius Landsbergis, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, to deliver his opening remarks.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to begin, I would like to extend my congratulations to all the dedicated professionals of Lithuanian Development Cooperation on the occasion of their annual conference. We meet at the end of the third year of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Brutal military force remains at the core of Russia's approach to the international order. Russia doesn't shy away from further weapon rattling, including nuclear weapons. Russia openly uses its armies to kill civilians and destroy civilian infrastructure. This is so much opposite to what millions of development assistance professionals around the world are doing daily as their primary job. Our response has been clear: Ukraine has to win. And the path to that victory leads through existing and new partnerships to keep Ukraine defending us, Europeans. Lithuania's commitment to Ukraine's victory is unbreakable. Our spending this year for the needs of Ukraine has crossed the benchmark of 0.3% of national GDP. Large part of it comes to Ukraine's reconstruction efforts. Taiwan, Andorra, Ireland, and the European Commission have joined our efforts to rebuild schools, kindergartens, rehabilitation centers, and equip them with bomb shelters. Our initiative, Future School for Ukraine, will soon be strengthened by an Italian architecture company. We all share a common understanding that Ukraine's recovery is not just about restoring buildings. It's about restoring lives and hopes. Helping children return to nurseries and schools brings a sense of normality and hope in the face of the war and its fatigue. Our combined efforts deliver meaningful change. We create future. By involving international expertise, we ensure that these projects will set standards for Ukraine's reconstruction after its victory. Ladies and gentlemen, restoring Ukraine's energy sector is another important area we are working on. Russia has constantly and deliberately attacked Ukraine's power generation facilities. This severely affects daily lives of Ukrainians, especially in winter season. We are fully aware that Russia's aggressive imperialist ambitions extend well beyond Ukraine. With 63 million euros of assistance, Lithuania is among the largest suppliers of generators and transformers to Ukraine. In this context, our contribution expands resilience and adds to the stability of the larger geopolitical region. We call for further strengthening of this resilience in Russia's immediate neighborhood, Moldova, Armenia, and Georgia. Here too, we rely on our partnerships, as witnessed by many successful twinning projects carried out with Lithuania's participation. So let us unite in spirit of stronger together to win existential battles of today and secure our common victory. Slava Ukraini! Now I'm happy to extend the floor to Oksay Lisovy, the Minister of Education and Science of Ukraine, who is joining us online. I thank you.
Шановні пані і панове, мене добре чути.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to speak at this forum.
Дякую за можливість виступити на цьому важливому форумі. Я щиро переконаний, що відновлення України починається з відновлення освіти. Життя у деокупованих і зруйнованих Росією українських містах відновлюється саме завдяки поверненню до роботи закладів освіти.
I'm sincerely convinced that the restoration of Ukraine begins with the restoration of education. Life in Ukrainian cities, in deoccupied and redestroyed by Russia, is being restored thanks to the return of work of educational institutions.
І це не наше припущення. Ми бачимо сьогодні на власні очі. Люди повертаються в свої громади тоді, коли відновлюється робота закладів освіти.
And this is not just an assumption. We see it today with our own eyes. People return to their communities exactly when the work of educational institutions resumes.
Тому я щиро дякую уряду Литви за ті зусилля, які зараз докладаються саме для відновлення освіти. Я дякую народу Литви, дякую литовським партнерам з бізнесу і благодійних фондів.
Therefore, I sincerely thank the government of Lithuania for the efforts that are currently being made to restore education. I thank the people of Lithuania, and I thank Lithuanian business partners and charitable foundations.
Я хочу подякувати особисто міністру закордонних справ Габріелісу Ландсбергісу, який є близьким другом України.
And I would like to personally thank the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Gabrielius Landsbergis, who is a close friend of Ukraine.
Ми відчуваємо вашу підтримку, спостерігаємо за вашими виступами в підтримку України, і кожне ваше слово, яке ви сміливо озвучуєте, має відгук у наших серцях.
We feel your support, and we watch your speeches in support of Ukraine. Each of your words, which you speak boldly, resonates in our hearts, and we really appreciate it and thank you personally.
Ми вже дуже багато зробили за підтримки Литви. Ми відновили школу в Снігурівці, ми реконструювали ліцей у Бородянці, ми збудували дитячий садок у Ірпіні.
We have already done a lot with the support of Lithuania. We restored a school in Snihurivka, reconstructed a lyceum in Borodyanka, built a kindergarten in Irpin.
Ми побудували і будуємо далі укриття, щоб діти могли ховатися від російських повітряних атак, яким щодня піддаються наші цивільні міста.
We have built and continue building the shelters so that the children could hide from the Russian air attacks that our civilian cities are subjected to every day.
Щонайменше 4 таких проекти зараз знаходяться на стадії реалізації.
At least 4 more projects are currently under implementation.
Не менш важливий напрямок підтримки у відбудові системи освіти України – це допомога у створенні проектно-технічної, проектно-кошторисної документації.
Another no less important direction of support in the reconstruction of educational institutions and assistance is the creation of design and technical documentation.
Будь-яка відбудова починається насамперед з розробки проєктів.
Any reconstruction begins first of all with the development of projects.
Сьогодні ми отримуємо численні запити від громад на допомогу у створенні такої документації. Ми дуже раді, що за вашої ініціативи робота в цьому напрямку вже розпочалася.
Today we received numerous requests from communities for help in creating such documentation. We are very glad that on your initiative, work in this direction has already begun.
Ми маємо чудовий італійсько-український проект нової школи для України і зацікавлені в тому, щоб розширити таке партнерство надалі.
We have a wonderful Italian-Ukrainian project for a new school for Ukraine and are interested in expanding our partnership further.
Але ми чітко розуміємо, що пошкоджені або зруйновані заклади освіти немає сенсу відбудовувати у старому вигляді.
After all, we clearly understand that it makes no sense to rebuild damaged or destroyed educational institutions in their old form.
В більшості випадків нам потрібно нове будівництво, а будь-яке нове будівництво починається з наявності проекту і з його кошторисної вартості.
We need new construction, and any new construction begins with the availability of the project and its estimated cost.
Зараз нам необхідно зробити проекти усієї нової освітньої інфраструктури України.
It is necessary to make projects of the entire new educational infrastructure of Ukraine.
Масштаб руйнувань у нас колосальний, і кількість освітніх інституцій, які потребують не лише відновлення, але й модернізації, є дуже великою.
The scale of destruction is colossal, and the number of educational institutions that need not only restoration but also modernization is very vast.
Мова йде про десятки університетів, про сотні закладів професійної освіти і про тисячі шкіл і дитячих садочків.
We are talking about dozens of universities, hundreds of vocational educational institutions, and thousands of schools and kindergartens.
Це величезний ринок, зокрема, для ваших компаній у майбутньому.
This is a very big market, in particular of your companies in the future.
Це велика робота, яку ми маємо зробити в майбутньому, але сьогодні ми маємо і гострі нагальні потреби.
This is a great work that we have to do in the future, but today we have urgent needs.
Говорячи про відновлення освіти, це укриття, це автобуси, це генератори.
Talking about rebuilding education means shelters, buses, and generators.
Ми не лише відновлюємо пошкоджені заклади освіти, але й створюємо безпечне освітнє середовище для тих закладів, які вистояли.
We are not only talking about restoring the damaged educational institutions, but also creating a safe educational environment for those educational institutions that have survived.
Ми маємо потребу у будівництві укриттів, що не закрита державним бюджетом. Це близько 500 укриттів та близько 700 автобусів, які зможуть підвозити дітей до закладів, які мають бомбосховище.
We have a need for the reconstruction of shelters, which is not covered by the state budget, and it means about 700 buses that will be able to take children to institutions that have bomb shelters.
Насамкінець я хочу сказати, що я радий вітати спецпредставника Італійської Республіки з питань відбудови України пана Давіда Лацесіліо з присутністю на сьогоднішньому заході.
In conclusion, I would like to say that I am glad to welcome the Italy's special envoy for the recovery of Ukraine, Mr. Davide La Sicilia, with his presence at today's event.
Наступного року Італія прийматиме надзвичайно важливий захід. Це конференція з питань відновлення України URC 2025.
Next year, Italy will host an extremely important event, the Conference on Reconstruction of Ukraine, URC 2025.
Я маю надію, що сьогоднішні дискусії перетворяться на нові проекти, ініціативи, на нові партнерства, про які ми з гордістю зможемо оголосити на майбутній конференції.
I hope that today's discussions will turn into new projects, initiatives, and partnerships that we'll be able to proudly announce at the upcoming conference.
Україна бореться, Україна вистоїть, і вистоїть вона завдяки нашому тісному партнерству і взаємодії. Дякую за увагу.
Ukraine is fighting, Ukraine stands, and it will stand thanks to our partnership today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister. We truly appreciate your inspiring speech and availability. Indeed, education is critically important factor to build Ukraine's long-term and resilience and prosperity. Lithuania is proud to support Ukraine in their endeavor to ensure safe and high-quality education. So once again, thank you very much for both speakers for the opening remarks. And now I am honored to welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. David La Sicilia, the Special Envoy for Ukraine's Reconstruction, representing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Italy. Excellency, the floor is yours.
First of all, thank you very much for this invitation to talk about the Ukraine Recovery Conference of 2025 in Italy, which gives me the opportunity of showing how much Italy intends to stay in the front line in providing assistance to Kiev in line with what we have been doing since the first day of the Russian aggression, and especially in this year of the G7 presidency. I want to thank Foreign Minister Landsbergis for his hospitality, and Minister of Education and Science of Ukraine, Lisovi, for his words. This is my second time in Vilnius. The first time was in 1991, more than 30 years ago. In a very momentous time, I was in the team which came from Italy to reopen official relations with the 3 Baltic countries. And my memory is still vivid of the visit I had to the parliament and the pain we felt for the victims who fell in the name of democracy. Before talking of Ukraine, I would like to say something very shortly about Italian development cooperation, since this is a conference on development cooperation, drawing on the fresh experience we had in the G7 development ministerial meeting in Pescara just a few days ago. First of all, our development cooperation is based on teamwork. Teamwork is at the heart of our action. It involves many elements of what we call the Italian system. We believe in development cooperation, which takes a central role in Italian foreign policy action, involving not only the government and government agencies, but also local authorities, academia, universities, civil society, business, even missionary organizations. We had a specific event in Pescara, a bit the approach that we are going to have with the Ukrainian Recovery Conference that we will discuss later. In this context, our priority is Africa. Africa is for us, of course, a strategic priority, starting from the countries with which we had a consolidated relationship, like Tunisia, Ethiopia, Mozambique, Senegal, and also migrations, of course. Migrations are a fundamental theme in the government actions. We want to reduce the push factors, starting with food insecurity, and create concrete alternatives to migration. And also the fight against human trafficking and irregular migrations involves a decisive action in favor of socio-economic development of partners. And then, of course, there are the current crises, Gaza and Ukraine, where Italy wants to continue to be a protagonist in these very complex scenarios. We adopted an initiative called Fur for Gaza in order to strengthen the collaboration with the UN system. And in Ukraine, our contribution is at the moment over 2 billion euro without considering military and European assistance. We provided 310 million for budget support, 93 million in humanitarian aid, 1 billion for the assistance to refugees. And on top of this, in Berlin, our foreign minister announced further contribution for 140 million in energy, infrastructure, health, culture, and agribusiness. And another principle of our development cooperation is actually what you write here, international partnership and multilateralism. That's very, very important. We want to work with multilateral organizations, starting, of course, from the European Union in a Team Europe approach that I believe you fully share. Now, going back to Ukraine, first of all, I want to see that the Ukraine Recovery Conference happened in a context of the broad support of the international community for the reconstruction and recovery of Ukraine. We started discussing the reconstruction of Ukraine as a tool for supporting Ukrainian effort since the very beginning of the aggression, since May 2022. There were the first meetings, the first conferences on the recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine, and then within the G7 group, we set up a Ukraine donor platform which started working with a number of countries. This group was enlarged, it became G7 plus. Lithuania is part of this group, putting together financing projects and reforms. The last meeting we had was in Rome on the 9th of October, and for the first time we received from the Ukrainian government a single pipeline of projects with 700 projects to be financed through the 50 billion Ukrainian recovery facility we set up in Brussels, with corresponding reforms and conditionalities aimed at promoting Ukrainian accession to the European Union. We firmly believe that the process of reconstruction and the process of accession to the European Union of Ukraine are strongly intertwined. The Ukrainian Recovery Conference is part of this effort. You know very well because you have organized one of them when it was the Ukraine Reform Conference a few years ago. It will take place in Rome on the 10th and 11th of July next year. We have 9 months only to get ready. And this is not a lot of time considering the magnitude and the complexity of this event. We are fully aware of this responsibility. That's a very important event, the most important event every year to discuss recovery and reconstruction. It has been called the financial economic Ramstein by the American special envoy, and it's going to be relevant in any possible scenario for Ukraine's future, including if the victory plan succeeds, will become the place where the economic envelope of peace can be discussed. And for us, for Italy, of course, this is a continuation of the leading role we had during the G7 presidency this year. The conference has grown overambitious. We are expecting to have 80 official delegations, including the international organization, 3,500 participants, 700 companies, 500 representatives of the civil society, 500 representatives of local administration. We have to put all of them on stage with different arrangements, and this will help us to mobilize continuous international support for Ukraine and contribute to create momentum for the reconstruction. We have confirmed the 4 dimensions of the Berlin Conference this year, both for substantial reasons and in order to give the conference more continuity, in order to dispel the impression that this is a one-off exercise, 2 days, and then we can forget about it. The 4 dimensions are the business dimensions. It is impossible to think of Ukrainian reconstruction without the contribution of private capitals. The human dimension, because this is key to the recovery, we need to mobilize human capital for reconstruction. We need to care for vulnerable groups like women, veterans, refugees, IDPs, people with disabilities. And we need to ensure that Ukraine is a country worth living in for all and where people can return. Then there is the local and regional dimensions, because we want to bring reconstruction closer to people. We want to have also a bottom-up approach. We want that ideas and proposals for the reconstruction come directly from communities. And the 4th dimension is the European Union reform dimensions, for the reasons I said before, the link between the 2 processes of reconstruction and accession to the European Union. So we want to give more continuity to this exercise. We want to create another international organizations, but we think that we need some degree of permanency in the conference. And the conference, I believe, is going to be around for quite some time, for the time that we hope as short as possible for Ukraine to complete its integration process within the European Union. And we want also to better integrate the work we are doing in the Ukraine donor platform with the work of the conference. During the conference, there could be a ministerial meeting of the Ukraine donor platform with all the stakeholders. In terms of structure of the conference, we are thinking of a main event. The first half, the first part of the first day will be devoted to the openings at the level of heads of state and government. The previous conference was inaugurated by Chancellor Scholz, President Zelensky, and the President of the Commission, von der Leyen. Our Prime Minister will send out invitation with the Ukrainian President. There will be sessions for foreign ministers starting from the G7 ministers, and then there will be, in the second part, the afternoon of the first day and the second day, panels, 6-7 panels, for each pillar of the conference. Plus, there is a recovery forum, a business forum on the main sectors of reconstruction, infrastructure, transport, energy, digital, health, strategic industry, and the business fair, where Ukrainian companies and local administration can present what they do, their proposals, and there could be B2B and B2G meetings for the matchmaking. It will be a whole of society approach. That means that all the stakeholders that I mentioned, official delegation, civil society, business, local administrator, will be able to interact together, to circulate in the same space of the conference, which is a challenge not only security-wise, because there will be in each panel we should include representatives from Ukraine, from Italy, from international partners, from the local level, from the business community. And the second challenge will be to establish the concept and the deliverables of the conference, and this is going to be a very dynamic process because it will be very difficult from in such a long term to predict which priorities we are going to have in July. So it will be sort of work in progress that will require flexibility and ability to adjust. For this reason, we are launching a consultation process with partners and stakeholders. My visit here in Vilnius is part of this process. We are going to set up a sounding board for think tanks, and also we are going to have preparatory events along this year. Two of them in Italy dedicated to business and the local dimension, one in Brussels for reform and coordination with European institutions, and another in Kiev for the human capital / civil society. We want to be as concrete and result-oriented as possible, according to recommendations that President Zelensky made himself talking to Italian business a few weeks ago on the Lake of Como. We had an important event. The conference is not really a pledging conference, but of course we will encourage partners to concentrate on this occasion all the announcement of new funds or new initiatives. The Berlin conference was able to master 16.5 billion euro and to have 110 agreements and contracts signed on that occasion. There will be also a parliamentary session dedicated to parliaments and cultural events, I hope, inside the conference and also in the city of Rome, dedicated to the civil society. So this is our reflection on the conference. Of course, we will be very much appreciating your input based on your previous experience. Before concluding, I want also to say a couple of things about the presence of culture in the reconstruction of Ukraine and in the conference. This is culture is a very relevant cross-cutting issue for all the four dimensions, and it could also represent a strong ground of collaboration between Lithuania and Italy. Building back better at the cities level is at the core of Italy's engagement, considering our expertise in reconstructions, which comes from a 20th century which was characterized by natural and human-made disasters, starting from earthquakes at the beginning of the 20th century, going through the two world conflicts, and then the flood in Florence in the mid of the 60s, and a number of earthquakes in recent decades. So we accumulated a lot of expertise in the academia, in the architectural engineering field on this reconstruction, and drawing upon this experience, some prestigious institutions in Italy, like Triennale of Milan and the Maxi Museum of Contemporary Art in Rome, imagined to create a workshop for the reconstruction of Ukraine with the purpose of putting together Italian and international architectural know-how in heritage protection and restoration and rebuilding of cities. We launched a project on Odessa. Italy took the patronage of Odessa. This is a three-dimension project for the reconstruction of the roof of the church, of the cathedral, the protection of the 52 cultural sites of the historic center, and the draft of a master plan of the city. It's a project worth 45 million, open to other partners' contribution. It's only the first stage because we believe that from the master plan, there could be a number of working tracks attracting investments in different sectors, from infrastructure to the port, to urban transport, agribusiness, to name just a few. And we would like also that these projects will contribute to institution building in order to develop administrative capacity within the municipality and the region of Odessa. One idea is to establish a civil observatory of reconstruction with the participation of local authorities, cultural institutions, and the civil society. En passant, this will help attracting essential private capitals. We are also working on Mykolaiv with an Italian architectural firm under a program of the United Nations, UN for Ukraine cities. Also there we are preparing the master plan of the city, and then a number of pilot projects for the reconstruction of Mykolaiv, and to make Mykolaiv a more livable, greener, more efficient city where once again people can come back. These are all examples of what we call architecture diplomacy, which is, I'm discovering now, more clear than, than our diplomacy, because it talks by images, so it's very clear what we can do through the contribution of architecture. One example of this, and I want to compliment them, is the prize won by Skandura in this program, Future School for Ukraine, which could represent also that a ground for a good cooperation between our two countries. And finally, I want also to mention that another idea that comes directly from the conference you had here in Vilnius in June towards the recovery of the cultural sector of Ukraine, and the work we done in the G7 cultural ministerial meeting in Naples in September, just a few days ago. And this is the recognition that the widespread destruction of historic sites and cultural institutions such as museums, theaters, libraries, archives, churches that we are watching is not only a destruction and misappropriation of cultural heritage, but also a clear threat of erasing Ukraine's cultural identity, affecting human rights, including cultural, economic, and social rights. And this is why, besides condemning the destruction, in Naples, we recommitted to defend and promote the resilience and regeneration of Ukrainian culture and cultural heritage, supporting Ukraine in its effort to protect, restore, rebuild its cultural and creative sectors of and industry. So this is a very proactive approach. This initiative will be called the Naples Initiative, will become a deliverable of the Ukraine Recovery Conference, and we hope that partners will join this initiative. And we will bring culture to the Ukraine Recovery Conference. So this is an indication that we receive from the Vilnius conference a few months ago. For the first time, it became a topic discussed in the Berlin Ukraine Recovery Conference. And of course, we want to give a lot of space to culture also in our conferences. So I'll be very happy to discuss with you which are the best modalities for this to happen, and we are very much open to your suggestions. Thank you.
Your Excellency, really thank you very much for your very comprehensive speech and sharing your vision of Ukraine Recovery Conference. And I am sure your suggestions, your contribution will help us to prepare and provide meaningful inputs and our suggestions. And having this in mind, we now transition to our first panel discussions of the day, Building Resilience of Ukraine through Reconstructions and Recovery. This session will be explore Lithuanian and its partner strategic approaches to Ukraine's reconstruction and recovery, focusing on how we can strengthen the country's resilience through the instrument of development cooperation. And it is my pleasure to introduce the moderator of the session, Mrs. Mante Makauskaitė, Chief Advisor for International Partnerships at the Office of the Government of the Republic of Lithuania. Mante, floor is yours.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to be at this conference today. I think the amount of people here and the amount of international presence in this conference really signals how Lithuania matured as a partner due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, actually. So if there is anything to be proud of, I think we can definitely be proud of how much we are doing, and I will be really glad to discuss our own work and our partners' work with my panelists. I think we have quite a nice and diverse setup of the panelists and perspectives. So I would like to first invite my colleague, Ambassador at Large of Lithuania to the Reconstruction of Ukraine, Mr. Andrius Kalindra. And maybe we all can sit closer to me rather than... Ambassador of Ireland to Lithuania, Ms. Shana McHugh. Director of Kiev School of Economics Institute, Ms. Svetlana Denisenko. And we really appreciate Svetlana coming all the way from Ukraine to Lithuania, which is something you don't take for granted these days. Mr. Romas Švedas, who is independent expert in EU integration, governance, and international relations. And Mr. Artūras Žarnovskis, Co-Create Future of Ukraine and European Peace Facility Program Manager from the Central Project Management Agency. I want to encourage you to think about your questions because we will definitely leave time for that. And I've discussed with my panelists before that we would really like to have it a bit more interactive. We talk about resilience, and an interesting thing I know, thinking about Ukraine's recovery conference, that actually a number of civil society activists wanted it to be called Ukraine's Resilience Conference, because recovery seems to be something that you experience after something, and we are still very much in the middle of war, a war of attrition, in which resilience becomes a center concept around which we should think how to support Ukraine. Military support, of course, first and foremost, the most important. But in this country, from the very early days, we took a stance that reconstruction has to start and happen now. And we take pride in being one of the first countries to start reconstruction projects. We have now quite a big portfolio of activities, and it is expanding. And even today, I think nobody yet mentioned that there were 3 memorandums signed for new partnerships with Ireland, with Taiwan, with Italian companies Kandura for already mentioned projects, Future School for Ukraine. So we are nowhere to stopping what we do. But I think it's very important to keep thinking about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense when it comes to reconstruction and recovery, because the situation in Ukraine is very dynamic. There is a lot happening. And I would like first to give the floor to Svetlana to give us a bit of a perspective how life in Kiev, in Ukraine in general, looks today. What are the priorities? How the society is feeling? And about this resilience, so what are the sources of resilience of Ukrainian society?
Yeah. Thank you, Manta. Thank you for this invitation, and dear conference participants, dear colleagues, dear friends, I believe. It's a great honor to me to be a part of this conference, and I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to all of you, to the government of Lithuania, all the governmental institutions, and the people of Lithuania, and all other EU countries who are supporting Ukraine in this brutal war and keep working on our victory. I strongly believe that international partnerships are the backbone for Ukraine's recovery, but also for growth of every democratic nation. But what unites Lithuania and Ukraine goes beyond partnership. We share common values and vision for a future. Both our countries strive for peace, prosperity, and strength as thriving democracies. And as Kyiv School of Economics, we are deeply engaged in multidimensional programs and projects supporting victory, recovery, and development of human capital in Ukraine despite of the war. Our country must win not only militarily, but also economically and intellectually. And to start, let me provide to you with a context based on the recent research of Kyiv School of Economics, which is an integral part of our ecosystem and the largest think tank in Ukraine. So the key facts about Ukraine's recovery are the following. At the current stage of recovery, Ukraine's economy risks lagging 5-10 years behind the EU average key economic indicators. And to fundamentally change this and realize the objective of the Ukraine plan, it's critical to stimulate investments from the current forecasted 140 million 2025-2027 to around $200 billion. We also need to boost exports and goods and services and ensure budgetary stability. For this, support of our partners are critical. And given the state's recovery strategy, three priorities are crucial. It means systemic, predictable macro assistance from international partners, increased investment in Ukrainian industries, and expanded export capabilities. And for sure, the last but not least, our priority is bringing our citizens home. It's understandable, and it's a great commitment of our government, the Office of the President, and business and civil society of Ukraine. And I'm very proud that today I will talk a little bit more about our cooperation with Lithuania on this. The Kyiv School of Economics is a multidimensional institution, comprises 4 pillars addressing critical needs of recovery of Ukraine. We have our university, which expanded our educational offerings to cover programs in engineering, in drone engineering and memory and conflicts, not only to be focused on economy. Our scholarship programs ensure quality education is accessible to all talents, including vulnerable groups like children of heroes, of our defenders, displaced families, and veterans. We also have KC Institute, which is a leading think tank, and it's a part of Yermak Fall Sanction Group and a reliable partner of the Office of the President and the government in terms of developing our strategy of cooperation and recovery of Ukraine. Our business school fosters entrepreneurship during the war and after the war, focusing on Miltech, cluster development, and startup ecosystem for Ukraine. And finally, charitable foundation I am leading is the 5th largest charitable foundation in Ukraine, supporting not only our critical need, which is support of our defenders, but also development of human capital through education, because we believe that investment in education is investment in our future, because all those children who are studying today at the bomb shelter will be those who will rebuild Ukraine after the war. But also we would like to be a reliable partner for our international peers and for the government to strengthen governmental capacities and to have some more new blood, probably, and ideas to make this process more sustainable and more focused on the result.
Okay, thank you, Svetlana. You made a little teaser about what we are partnering on. Actually, I can say that Kyiv School of Economics, the group of Kyiv School of Economics entities, is a very interesting actor in Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction ecosystem, and we are very happy to partner on a new project. And as another second teaser, before we talk about it, I would like to ask to wave hands of the young Ukrainian professionals who are here today, just to show the audience. Yes, we will talk about those people later. Okay, so we heard about Ukraine's priorities, and now I would like to ask somewhat new addition to Team Lithuania when it comes to supporting Ukraine, somewhat newly appointed ambassador who actually has been already for quite some time to know what Lithuania has achieved so far and is very much strategizing what we will do in the future. So Andrius, over to you. What are priorities for Lithuania in Ukraine?
Thank you very much. And first, very warm welcome to all the friends of Ukraine that are present here today. And personally and professionally, to talk about Ukraine nowadays, it's a challenging and not easy task, because we do realize that the life that we do have in this part of the world is very much different from the one in Ukraine. I do take note of Ukrainian Minister of Education quote that the restoration of Ukraine begins from restoration of education. And definitely we have cases where while for 5 years kids are not in the schools, they are without social ties, without kind of community ties. And this is very, very difficult to imagine. While talking about all the contributions, international contributions, this is not a race which country gives more. Because if Ukraine fails, all of us will be not at the winner side. So definitely this is our responsibility, that support to Ukraine should not be compromised in any manner. Because we take that responsibility right now for the today and tomorrow of Ukraine. Yes, as you rightly noted, the government of Lithuania just a few weeks ago endorsed the guidelines that are directed to streamline the Lithuanian support to Ukraine. There were many initiatives, and we tried just to compile and to combine all the efforts. And these guidelines, they are not touching the military support. This is the separate track, and that separate track works very well. So, as usually the bureaucrats, we have to determine the principles that we have to base our activities in order to developing any programmatic documents. So we kind of put an essence on 4 main principles. So this is one with the synergy between Ukraine needs and Lithuanians added value, where we and how we and where we can contribute the best. Scalability. That means that any project that we are working on that would be replicated, continued. And this future school for Ukraine, that the document we have signed today, I think it will be the one as options to go ahead with that scalability. Number 3, partnerships. Without partnerships, nothing moves. So we are investing, and we're very glad for Ireland, for Italy, for European Commission, for Andorra and Taiwan, that are contributing to our joint efforts in this. And synergies between multilateral and bilateral activities. So this is also the European track. So 4 main priority areas of our contribution to Ukrainians' recovery. So the strong institutions. And this is like an investment in the human capital. We went through ourselves 20, 30 years ago when we had to invest in order just to become EU and NATO member state. So definitely this is very much interconnected with the Ukrainian EU membership and sustainable recovery. Safe and quality education. So this is the infrastructure projects with soft part, but also combined with the shelters. And we were trying to do at most with additional resources. We will do even more in a more efficient way. Number 3, psychological rehabilitation and reintegration of wounded and victims of Russia's aggression. That's, I would say, very touchy and sensible issue. And there will no be limits of support that are going to be needed to this specific issue. And number 4, resilient and growing economy. Economy, yes, in order just Ukraine just to stand up once again, and we're very sure for that it will be the case. But the economy, it has to be kind of an element of prosperous future of Ukraine. So yes, resources are limited, but our will and determination in supporting Ukraine remains uncompromised. Let me stop here.
Thank you, Ambassador. Talking about limited resources, recently I asked our EU delegation in Ukraine partner, and Lithuania actually works quite a lot with EU delegation in Ukraine. And I asked him how would he describe Lithuania as a donor in Ukraine, and he said the biggest of the small donors. And he meant it not only by numbers but also by heart and spirit, which I thought was quite cute and accurate. Okay, talking about partnerships, another new addition to partnerships of Lithuania is Ireland, and we are very curious to hear about Ireland's priorities in Ukraine, and also the motivation behind partnership with Lithuania. So over to you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Mante. And good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here with you this morning, especially because this year we in Ireland are marking 50 years of the Irish Aid Programme. And I'm, on behalf of my colleague Eamon Mackay, who you were expecting to see on the stage, I send his regrets due to unforeseen circumstances. He couldn't join us. So what I might do, because I think it helps inform the answer to your question, is give a little bit of context for that 50 years of Ireland's development cooperation journey, because it helps signpost the types of priorities we have now in Ukraine. Last year, Lithuania, I believe, was celebrating 20 years of its aid program. So you joined, or you started it just 1 year before you joined the EU. We established ours 1 year after we joined the EU 50 years ago. And it was Ireland in 1974 is unrecognizable to the Ireland of today. We faced many economic and social challenges. But the establishment of Irish Aid was reflective of our desire to look outwards, to do good in the world, and to take our place among the responsible nations of the world who help to make the world a better place and don't just look inward to our own needs. And the establishment, it's a different background to Lithuania. It followed many years of engagement with the developing world, especially Africa, through missionaries and volunteers. And this was supported by communities around Ireland. And since then, in that last 50 years, the world and Ireland has changed dramatically. Back then, the global population had been just under 4 billion. Today, it's over 8 billion. There's been huge advantages in technology and transformative progress in fighting disease and in supporting agricultural production. But as a global community, in spite of all that, we still face this challenge of combating global poverty. And it's a shame that we are still facing it decades after many of the world's countries have banded together to try and fight it. And this overarching challenge of global poverty is accentuated by the climate change and also insecurity born of conflict. So in the early years of our aid program, we'd focused on a lot of skills transference. We looked at what we could share with the world, and where we were in our own national journey, we were a couple of decades into nation building. We were building the infrastructure of our own state. We gained our independence slightly later than Lithuania. We were a largely agriculturally focused country, and we had a great deep cultural appreciation for the transformative power of education. And these were all areas of focus that we brought to our aid program. And so in that 50 years, we've adapted as we as a country have grown and developed. Our nature of engagement has grown from bilateral partnerships to a much more significant focus today on working with the major international institutional bodies operating in the multilateral space. And that's one of the reasons why the project that we sent, or the collaboration we signed today, the MOU with Lithuania, in some way reflects a return to our roots and bilateral collaboration rather than donating millions to UN OCHA or the Red Cross or similar. So in terms of today, our ODA has been consistently increasing. Last year, it amounted to 2.6 billion, or 0.67% of GNP, but that includes eligible first-year costs for Ukrainian refugees in Ireland, and we're very proud to say that we are giving a home and a welcome to 110,000 Ukrainians today. But excluding, if we take out the costs for supporting Ukrainian refugees in Ireland, ODA amounted to 1.47 billion, or 0.38% of GNP, and we are always working on increasing that. So our overarching approach in using that ODA is on reducing humanitarian need, strengthening global governance, advocating for the rights of women and girls, and emboldening collective action on climate change. And the first three of these in particular are where our priorities are concentrated when it comes to Ukraine. Since February 22, Ireland has provided 380 million to Ukraine, and in this context I'm speaking of overseas development assistance rather than wider supports. So approximately 130 million of that is towards stabilization and humanitarian supports. And also there's approximately 250 million of non-lethal military assistance under the European Peace Facility. And this September, the government announced a further 36 million of supports for Ukraine, but also its neighbours. And it's in that bundle of commitments that we announced the support for the Lithuanian joint collaboration to build bomb shelters with schools, because that piece of supporting education in the education of young people, it's always been a focus point of our aid programme, and in some small way we want to help empower that next generation, and at least for some of those that benefit, spare them some of the trauma and fear that may accompany them in attending their classes. So we have, I have a wad of papers with statistics and different programs and different partners, and I will spare unless anybody has particular questions on what we might be giving to one, but just to say we're with Ukraine. We will continue to support you. You are important to us, and this new partnership with Lithuania really reflects the deep esteem in which we hold Lithuania as a partner in general, but also recognize the value of the work and the positioning you're taking in respect of Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Yeah, I think we also take pride in this partnership because from the very early days we understood our limitations. We are mighty yet small, and whatever we want to do in Ukraine, we need partners. So we are very happy to have you on board, and I think this going back to the roots is also an interesting direction. And I personally really believe that bilateral support to Ukraine is very important. Not to say that multilateral organizations are doing something wrong, but I think from a very personal perspective, it's very important for Ukrainians to see specific countries supporting them rather than some general agencies and so on. It's Lithuania, it's Ireland, it's Canada, and so on. And I think it really builds that resilience that we are talking about today. So moving to Lithuania's bilateral activities, I would like to give the floor to Artūras Žarnovskis from our development agency, who is very much hands-on in delivering those bilateral activities. And getting back to my question to that EU delegation colleague, another thing he said about Lithuania as a donor is that Lithuania is very hands-on, delivery-focused, less talking, more doing. And this is, I think, the image of Central Project Management Agency, because this is the EU delegation's main interlocutor, basically working. So I think it's a compliment to the agency. So maybe you can tell us about how CPAV has been changing since the full-scale invasion and what it meant for you as an organization.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, we are working in Ukraine, and it was new thing for us after 2014. So, and bilaterally, and implementing reform projects financed by European Commission. But after full invasion, of course, everything changed, and is changing even now. But in the beginning, it was not so clear what to do and how to do and how to deliver. But at the same time, it was clear that it needs to be done fastly, in line with the foreign policy of Lithuania, because development cooperation and rebuilding of Ukraine is one of the elements of the foreign policy. And at first it was like sprint, because we didn't understand at that moment how long it will take, and in that moment there was no clear instruction how to develop those projects. There were number of practical questions how to solve them, but in the same time, by doing, we get more and more information, more and more knowledge, and more understanding what needs to be done, what needs to be developed, and etc. And of course, we as agency, it was, you know, big scope of different challenges for our team. So we had to make some changes in our structure, in our team, and now we are switching, I would say, or switched from this long term, from short term, immediate response to more strategic and long term vision, but together with the quick deliveries. And yeah, we are proud of that. But thinking more and more in the long term. So it was a very huge task for our agency. But together with other institutions like Embassy, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of Lithuania, stakeholders in Ukraine, somehow we fit everything together, and I think we're on good track.
Artūras, maybe you can also mention about the volume of activities of CPMA, just to give the audience the perspective of how much you're actually implementing.
Yeah, we are working mainly in 4 sectors. So it is educational sector. It was a lot of highlights for that. But yeah, we reconstructed schools, kindergartens, bomb shelters in Ukraine already, and we started in the summer 2022. After that, we now having ongoing projects for the bomb shelters, and also it was a switch from the Kiev region to different regions closer to the front line, where the environment is very difficult and different to implement actually those projects, because you have a lot of problems with manpower, with electricity, with logistics, and etc., public procurement. So now we have ongoing projects in 5 different regions with the bomb shelters. We are building one school in Zeleny High. Also, we started so it is the educational sector, future school for Ukraine, it was mentioned. So from different angles. Another important area, and the biggest one area actually bilaterally, is rehabilitation of wounded soldiers. So we have big free infrastructure projects in different regions, in Zhytomyr, in Dnipro, and Lviv, for the rehabilitation centers, and also soft component to increase the level of the rehabilitation in physical, mental health, reintegration areas, working with the trainings, working with the hospitals teams. So rehabilitation is the second area. The third area is the demining. Sometimes in some countries it is not purely development cooperation, but I think that it is extremely important and horizontal thing, because you cannot even, you know, bring back children to school if it is not, if it's still mines there. So demining, and it goes through different resources from European Commission, from Demining Coalition, led by the Ministry of Defense, and reform projects. I think Mr. Shadas will tell more about that. But I think it is also horizontal. I think the changes, the reforms, and the accession to the EU. So the range is very wide, but in the same time, we have some focused areas. Geographically, it is very difficult, but now first projects were in the Kiev region, and now we understand that you cannot focus on the one region, and I know that some countries have geographical approach, but in our case, it is more sectorial approach.
Yes, thank you, Arturas, and a very nice introduction to last but definitely not the least panelist, Romas Švedas, who is these days spending a lot of time talking about EU integration with Ukrainian colleagues. So EU integration has been mentioned a number of times today and is usually mentioned on a very nice high-level policy perspective, but the reality of public servants getting ready for those tedious screening processes now is supported by Lithuania bilaterally and soon will be supported jointly with the EU and other member states of the EU. But over to you, Mr. Romas. Tell us what's going on when it comes to EU integration of Ukraine.
Okay, so hello everybody. I'm pleased to be here at this meeting and to share the experience. So on the topic of EU integration, what's going on, the status quo, so how I would describe, so I think that three main points could be highlighted on this topic. So first point, that Ukraine was invited for EU accession negotiations and started EU accession negotiations, and congratulations on that. Indeed, that's a big event. And when we talk, and the title, I've looked to the title of our conference, Building Resilience, so EU membership would definitely build the resilience of Ukraine, strengthen the resilience of Ukraine. Why? Because EU is about what? Freedom, it's about democracy, it's about human rights, it's about rule of law, and this is what dictators are afraid most of all. So EU integration, EU membership of Ukraine definitely would add to our objective. Now, second point on status quo about Lithuania's participation. Whether Lithuanian participates, yes, LT8 project participates very intensively through the Central Project Management Agency, and this participation is currently at this stage through help on the accession negotiations. So it was kind of Lithuania was called on a very short notice, and since this start was quite quick, so Lithuania started its help and assistance to Ukraine from very beginning in preparation to the bilateral screening sessions with European Commission. You know that accession to EU is conducted based on the negotiating chapters. Every negotiating chapter has its certain requirements. So what Lithuania does now helps Ukrainian civil servants to prepare to be ready for these negotiations. Of course, it's not Lithuania alone. Of course, it's a big team of international partners. It's a very, very big team. It's about teaming up. And to my mind, Ukraine is doing quite well. Yes, me too. Me personally, I participate also in this process. Why? Because it happened so that 20 years ago, I participated in Lithuania's accession to EU. I was posted to Brussels. I've spent over there in our representation to EU 4 years, so I know corridors in Brussels quite well. So I am happy now to share this experience with our Ukrainian colleagues. And a third point on status quo, what's happening. that yes, Lithuania is going to continue, LT8 is going to continue its activities on EU integration topic, and it will be another big stage. This is, I don't know whether you have heard, but I guess the decision is already taken, or it was even publicly announced that Lithuania is going to be a coordinator of EU integration facility. So for Ukraine, this is a big program from European Union, where Lithuania will be conducting a role of coordinator, and this is a big responsibility. So about the challenges, very quickly, what are now the challenges? So first challenges for Ukraine, indeed to understand what does it mean, the process of accession, because it's not only political process, but it's also a practical process. There is a need to deliver. There is a need to make at least minimum of EU rules to start to work in Ukraine. And this is about, transferring the so-called acquis communautaire. And this is what is indeed need to be done. A challenge for Lithuania, big challenge for Lithuania on this EU integration facility. To my mind, this is it's a big honor for Lithuania. It's trust for Lithuania. It's a credit, and it's responsibility. It's about responsibility. It's not only about the project or programs to be implemented. This is about result to be achieved, and this is what is a responsibility. And third challenge, I would say, what we do have in future, it's for all European Union members, to understand the Ukrainian integration process, because European Union, all of us, we will have to vote for the results. And we should start thinking about now and start be ready for this process now, because in some countries this process will be faster, but in some countries this process will be challenging. So I will stop at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Romas. I fully share the feeling about the responsibility that Lithuania is taking in leading that EU program, but I think we are well placed. As our Prime Minister once said, we would do it as like for ourselves. So I think this is also one of the reasons why Lithuania is leading that program. So before I go for my second round of questions, maybe there are some questions in the audience that you would like to ask now. Yes, please go ahead. Maybe we can give the mic, or let's... Well, maybe try to speak and maybe we'll hear. Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Ruta Leitanaite. I am the board member of Architects Association of Lithuania, co-organizer of the Future School for Ukraine initiative, but I am also involved in other projects related to Ukraine, like Creative Europe project, Euro-Heritage Architects for Heritage in Ukraine, and I'm also the member of European Commission Expert Subgroup, Safeguarding Heritage for Ukraine. Is it? Okay. I was more than delighted by the speech of Mr. Davide La Cecilia, because 1/3 of the speech was dedicated to culture, and I heard word architecture for many times, so thank you for that. I want to come back to the topic of the culture, because culture is really important when it comes to the reconstruction of Ukraine. As Ms. Svetlana mentioned, one of the priorities for Ukraine is to bring people back to Ukraine. And culture, I think, is one of the best tools to do that, because Russia is targeting cultural sector deliberately, hitting cultural heritage objects in Ukraine, but also the propaganda in the world against Ukrainian culture. It's also saying that culture is a very important sector. So we hear also there are signals from Ukraine that culture is indeed not very much addressed when it comes to the plans for reconstruction of Ukraine. How would you see culture in your initiatives, in initiatives of Lithuania, Ireland, and also how would you, Svetlana, would see culture as a tool to reconstruct Ukraine? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So, Svetlana, a question to you, and I think then you can also continue on that teaser that we did. So, what is it that we, Lithuania and Kyiv School of Economics, is doing together?
Yeah, thank you for the question, first of all. And indeed, culture align with the education, healthcare sector, and probably social sector were always abandoned in terms of strategic priorities of not only Ukraine, but most of the countries. And now we do understand that culture is not the separate division or area we should develop. It should be rooted in in each and every our activity. For instance, education and international relations. We do understand that we need a structured approach on how we represent Ukraine, our values, and our strategic priorities. For instance, First Lady of Ukraine, Mrs. Olena Zelenska, is doing a great job on representation of Ukraine and our strategy on the international level. Annually, she has a meeting of First Ladies and Gentlemen in Kyiv, in wartime Kyiv, gathering all those representing soft power throughout not only EU, but also all other countries who are fighting for democracy and who share common knowledge and values. So I do believe that we should reconsider culture not to be a separated division or area, but to make it integrated to our strategic priorities from economy to international affairs. And now I can talk a little bit more about our great project. And I would like to start that partnership, really reliable partners, it goes beyond just providing funds. It seems to me it's a very simple knowledge and probably even evidential. But all the partnerships should be rooted in sharing expertise, developing capabilities, institutional and governmental. And I am very proud to be a part of such partnership within the Create Ukraine program. And this project is supported by the Central Project Management Agency, the government of Lithuania, and the EU. This initiative aims at bringing back Ukrainians home to apply their international knowledge and experience to transformative reforms in Ukraine. Through this program, 10 professionals who had been working in leading European companies and graduated from top universities in the UK, Italy, and the US, they have returned to Ukraine. And some of them are here, as you might see. And by actively participating in the conference, I think you will have some the opportunity to get known them during the break. And we do understand that this program is important in terms of capacity building. These people just started working at the Ministry of Economy. They are integral parts of the teams of the deputy ministers, and in a year their ideas and projects will lay the ground for strategic reforms. But what is more important, this Create Ukraine program is rooted in the successful experience of Create Lithuania project. And we do understand that people are the driving force behind the stage. And to, as my colleague said, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And if we want the Ukraine to be a prosperous country, a part of the EU with common values and knowledge, it must invest in the human capital and develop a team, nurture a team, and engage all those capable people who can make positive impact not only for our country, but generally for partnership and for the democracy development.
Thank you, Svetlana. And if I may say, I think that a country at war to which people are coming back in the middle of war is doing something really good, I think. And I really congratulate all those brave professionals who decided to leave their comfortable lives in whatever they were and to come back and to be part of the recovery process of Ukraine. And we definitely are proud that it's based on Lithuanian product. I think this is one of the most meaningful exports that we ever did, and we hope to increase, to scale this program in the future with international partners. So talking maybe about scaling and Lithuania's value added, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Andrius Kalindra again, who will have to leave. So also maybe some sort of wrap up from you, but we will stay a bit longer with the rest of the panel.
Thank you very much. First, let me a bit share of a criticism to ourselves. While we're talking international, among the friends, international forums, communities, etc., we do notice that the time gap between the political pledge until the actual delivery of support is way too long. Sometimes it's 12 months, even more. We do not have that kind of privilege, just to be so inefficient, because this is also about the reputation, what we're doing. And I do agree that, yes, bilateral support in this case, it goes much quicker, and it is much more tangible. So we do hope that new European Commission will address this issue, just to shorten that period of delivery of would be, any equipment, any products, any services, etc. to Ukraine, because especially in the field of energy, it's in a desperate need. So what we're doing domestically, regionally, internationally this is about just to make a change, to make a positive change and to make an immediate change. So there is much kind of a bunch of work for all of us to make that at the institutional level, but also how to better consolidate all the resources that we do have. And very, very shortly about the energy. Yes, we've tried a lot, and with my colleagues, we visited this Vilnius thermal power plant that is about to be dismantled. And please believe it, that this is so much unprecedented case at the even European level, and it sounds good, but this is still not enough. This is just only one, thermal plant, and Ukraine needs so many of them, and Ukraine needs them now. So let me very much encourage, while enjoying the cup of tea and coffee during the coffee break, just to think how better we could deliver that immediate response to Ukrainian needs. And my apologies, I have to.
Yes, a very good point about the speed. And I think to pick it up, I will go back to Artūras. And I think translating policies to very practical projects is a challenge. So this is an opportunity for you to give advice to policymakers. What is needed to be done on the policy level that agencies like yours could be able to deliver faster, and maybe also reflect on what Lithuania did well, where we were able to move fast, and where we struggled, just as many other partners do?
Yeah, quite difficult questions, but why we were quite quick and quite efficient, I think because of people who understands that it is our joint problem and they were really engaged. I mean that it was not just a project, but something behind that, and people can contribute with their efforts and with their knowledge, and I think that it is important element for the results. For the future, to be what needs to be done. Okay, we have done some good things, but how to continue? So first thing, for sure, it is presence on the ground. We have to strengthen our capacities on the ground through the regional offices and people there actually being in Ukraine, because without that we can lose efficiency. So it is first thing. The second thing, I would say, the deeper going into the programming and working with the other donors in the sectorial groups to fit better in the whole ecosystem with different initiatives, international donors, and different stakeholders. And the second thing, and the third thing is already done. I think those guidelines are a really important step, which shows not only the sectors but also the principles how we should work with the programming, with the implementing, and with the scalability of the project. So scalability is also for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and for the government, and we see the results. But also something needs to be done well, and after that, the diplomacy and political world can ensure the real scalability and attracting different donors into the Ukraine and into the programs.
Yes, thank you, Arturas. I think we travel so much to Ukraine that sometimes people think that we are there way more than we actually are. But yeah, presence on the ground is definitely what we need to strengthen. And continuing on the note of policy advice, I would also like to ask one from Romas Švedas, from the EU integration perspective. Lithuania has been promoting itself as a key partner in development cooperation when it comes to EU accession, but it's not a big secret that it also was a bit challenging for us to kick our support off. I mean, we are somewhat fast in the bigger perspective, maybe comparing ourselves to big countries and big organizations, but we also don't have a luxury to be slow because we don't have a huge volume. So how we could be more efficient also when we are trying to support Ukraine specifically on the EU accession?
Yes, thank you for the question. I would follow the example of proposed by Ambassador Andrius Kalindra. I would start from self-criticism, and it's like an audit. It's good. You know what is a challenge and you work on the challenge. So identifying challenges is very important. If you don't identify them, it's bad. So you would not reach the objective. So what would be the main challenge? What I would see now from the perspective of Ukrainians' integration into EU is that there is a need of closer cooperation, both horizontal and vertical. What does it mean? It means, what do I mean? Agencies which are implementing projects, delivering projects, such funds like LT Aid, they should closer cooperate with the governments. And I was thinking, what is the difference between rebuilding a school or kindergarten and building Ukraine's accession to EU? The difference is that you, in this case, in EU integration, you need not only to build laws in Ukrainian Union, but we need that everybody in Ukraine and everybody in EU would say yes. This is about emotional, this is about political, this is about hybrid attacks, also what we need to address. So closer cooperation between agencies and governments, and more attention from the governments. For example, I was thinking, we do have ambassadors at large from Lithuania for reconstruction here, Honorable Ambassador from Italy from reconstruction. I am raising an open question for all governments of EU. Do we have ambassadors at large for EU integration? I would leave it open, but I would invite to have this, and I would invite to start work from today. And this is about vertical, but horizontal cooperation across all European Union. This is an absolute need. It's not only that one on another country is doing one thing. No, no, no. It should be across all EU. So it should be coordinated and what is important. So this is a challenge, and this is what is important. Another challenge is, of course, is for Ukraine. For Ukraine, it will be a big challenge to, again, it's about understanding that, and I see here a lot of people, maybe they can bring the message to Ukraine that EU accession is not only about politics. It's not only political project. It's a project that needs to deliver. Like building a school, we need to build laws. We need to transfer the EU acquis communautaire to Ukrainian legislation. And Ukrainian Verkhovna Rada needs to vote. And the paradox is that, the most interesting paradox is that we call this process EU accession, and we call this process EU accession negotiations. It's Ukrainians EU accession negotiations. But this negotiations is very complex. You know, we can negotiate the support on agriculture and so on and so forth. But the paradox is that approving or transferring acquis communautaire, EU legislation to national legislation, is not subject for negotiation. EU will not negotiate on that. Why? Because if EU rules does not work in every EU country, EU would kind of ruin. This is the basis of functioning of EU. For example, in case Lithuania is not transferring some EU regulation, which is recently adopted, so we get infringement procedure. We can be maybe brought even to the court. You know, this is how it works. So yes, of course, everybody understands that this is a moment for Ukraine, political moment for Ukraine, and that Ukraine is fighting for freedom and democracy over whole Europe. But this is where we need together, we make it that we need to deliver, that we are not only, you know, assistance, LT8 can help to do analysis. We can draft legislation, but legislation needs to be approved by national governmental institutions. And I am sure we will do that together. That's what is our objective. So I'm very optimistic. Thank you.
Okay, we have a question very short because we have to be very cautious of time. So maybe you can come here. It was a very eager hand, so I couldn't say no, sorry.
I'll try to be... Can you hear me? Yeah. My name is Oksana. I'm one out of the 10 young professionals from Ukraine, which have been selected through the program Create Lithuania. Thank you very much for supporting this program. It's crucial, significant, and I'm sure, let's say in 5 up to 10 years, you will see every person from out of 10 somewhere in the government, maybe in Verkhovna Rada, who knows. But my question is exactly what you said, Mr. Romas. I really like the statement. It's not working. Mrs. Katerina, that accession talks, it's exactly not about talks. It's about implementing. And that key is exactly what I think that the message you were sending to us, that from the Ukraine side, there are no opportunity to talk. The only thing we need to do, especially Verkhovna Rada, just to follow strict rules in order to implement European rules, European legislation to the Ukrainian legislation. That's it, period. But my question is, I'm very happy to be in such a pro-Ukrainian environment today, but during having my internship with the European Parliament and having opportunity also to attend different conferences, there are still a lot of neutral people from different European countries who are very much skeptic about Ukraine's EU future. And to be honest, it's a bit complicated to beat these narratives and the question they are raising. My question to you is, how could we Ukrainians cooperate with all the pro-Ukrainian coalition within the European Union and beat Russian narratives which are still very much present from the European Commission to the European Parliament and to the P2P conversations?
I think this is a good question for Romas. Yes, and wow, what a boost of energy. I'm sure you will bring a lot of resilience to Ukrainian public sector. So a question to Romas, and maybe I think Ambassador Shaina, you could also comment from the Ireland's perspective about this coalition of pro-Ukrainian forces in the EU member states. Over to you, Romas.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for the question. Very good question. It's a Russian narrative, and basically you can put in a wrong situation, or you can discredit any topic in the world in case you want. And this is what is this hybrid attacks, what Russia is very good about. For example, in Lithuania, we had a lot of European Union skepticism. Why? Because, okay, European Union has a regulation that cucumbers should be of such and such kind of a size, design, and so on and so forth. And indeed, there is some of truth in that. Why? Because European Union is kind of a bit too much in regulation. But we try to now to minimize this regulation. But basically what I want to say, that you may attack any topic, and you may attack it, what you say, in European Union countries, in the European Union, kind of every separate country, showing that Ukraine would not be a good member of European Union. Also, it could be attacks in Ukraine itself. You know, discrediting European Union, explaining for people that it's not good to be member. So this is what I was talking about, where we need to team up. And this is about cooperation between the agencies, NGOs, and the governments. And the governments should, and I invite, to make a policy line that future Ukrainians' membership in EU, and to start working now. And it's not about policy, it's about strategic communication. It should be planned, it should be targeted, and it should be done between EU members, inside in our family, between the governments, between the people. Also, strategic communication starting from now in Ukraine, within Ukraine, with different sectors, agriculture sector, construction sector, because you may say that, oh, your construction sector will become bankrupt because of environmental protection rules of European Union. Why should you enter into European Union? So look, you know, in our case, for example, the big country of Lithuania, we had only one factory of cement, what we've been producing cement, and it was kind of a former Soviet Union standard. And when we entered into European Union, it was a new European Union standard, which is higher. So basically the whole Lithuanian industry became nearly bankrupt, the whole cement industry. But okay, you can always negotiate. So what we did, we said we negotiated a transition period and we improved it over the 3-5 years, but we did it. So we did it, but now the quality of Lithuanian cement is good. So we will, but these are the stories, you know, and this will be, you know, also the way how we should do that. But, you know, what I am inviting that we should do, we should not only talk, we should do, and we have an instrument, LT8, we have also Iron 850 years. Wow, impressive. Congratulations, and I'm sure we will do, and we will achieve a result. So thank you.
Very optimistic and very energetic. Okay, so yes, from the Ireland perspective, and then we are wrapping up.
Thanks. One thing I would say is that in the and I will say more than one thing, but the first thing I will say is that within the European Union, I think Ireland is is the country perhaps with the most consistently high ratings of approval for membership of the EU. We are seen as a very successful EU member. We're 51 years in the EU this year, but there was also skepticism when we joined. We were by far the poorest country, poorest member state when we joined in 1973. We were a little bit of an experiment. Now we were much smaller, so we weren't threatening in terms of the size of our agricultural sector and similar. So just to say, what's true today doesn't necessarily mean it'll be true tomorrow. In terms of combating the skepticism of other EU member states, which I think was at the core of your question, I think the best way you can do that, or that Ukraine can do that, is by proceeding as you have done. Ukraine has approached the project of EU accession with tremendous energy and optimism, all in a context of serious conflict. I mean, that is itself so impressive. So continue that, prove the naysayers wrong. There is a saying, the best revenge is a life lived well. So, let's see you live that life well within the European Union. Ireland, the reason I've been invited also to talk on this particular question is because Ireland was out of the gates very early in supporting Ukraine's EU membership ambitions. We are great believers in the transformative power of EU membership, and indeed for Moldova as well. I see my dear colleague here in the front row. And if I could just add one additional point to Romas's. Romas talked about strategic communication, and I would deepen that a little bit, and I would say within your country, and indeed within all of our countries, particularly today in a context of massive disinformation and increasingly sophisticated hybrid attacks in the information space, strategic education is needed. There are narratives in Ireland today which try to reopen grievances from 50 years ago when we joined the EU around the area of fisheries, for example. And, it's very easy to pick losses like the cement factory, and even years later kind of use this as an example and overlook all the benefits that have come in between. And I think for all of us to be good partners in the European Union, it's very useful for our citizens because, to have an understanding of what the European Union is. And we saw in our nearest neighbour the consequences of when perhaps there are narratives that take hold that portray the European Union as a negative factor that takes away your control and, disimproves the welfare of your citizens, when our experience is absolutely the contrary to that. So I think it's a long-term project. We can't relax on it. So strategic communication, but strategic education at all levels of society is another thing that you can take forward in Ukraine, because you can only be in control of what you do. You can never control how other people react to you, but I think it'll be a very persuasive case when you're next talking to interlocutors in Brussels if you do these. That's it.
Thank you so much. And I have to wrap up. Thanks to my panelists. I hope it has been as interesting to you as it has been to me. When everything feels said and done, there is still more to do for Ukraine, so we can continue talking during the coffee break and call to Blue Yellow to support Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you very much for the panelists of the first panel. I think everybody understood that we have really very comprehensive and very active discussions. As always, there's not enough time to answer all the questions and to hear all the comments. But anyway, now I would like to invite everybody for a short break, coffee break, but the break really will be very short, because we should follow the agenda, and I hope that we will manage during 15 minutes, and I would like to see everybody back to this hall at 11:35 in 15 minutes. Thank you very much. Dear guests, I hope you've managed to have a short break. And I would like to welcome everybody back. And now let me proceed directly to our next session entitled Empowering Partners, Approaches to Enhancing Resilience Against Global Challenges. And this session will be highlight experience from Lithuanian development cooperation projects in such areas as climate change, digital transformation, resilience to disinformation, and democracy promotion. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you the moderator of the session, Dovilė Paužaitė, Head of Development Cooperation and Democracy Promotion Division at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So, Dovilė, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Warm welcome to the second panel discussion of today's conference. So as it was mentioned, we will focus on a bit of a broader picture on building resilience and seeing how we as Lithuania can contribute to solving global challenges. I believe we had a lot of food for thought from the first session. We already started discussion on the narratives, on strategic communication, disinformation, but we will follow up and hopefully get deeper, as well as touch upon such global issues as climate change, as defending democratic values, and others. So I would like to warmly welcome our panelists. I'm starting with Mrs. Constance Wang, who is head of the Taiwanese representative office in Lithuania. Mrs. Marcela Liukita, head of the Development and Partnership Department from the Center for Strategic Communication and Countering Disinformation from Moldova. Thank you very much for joining us here in Vilnius. Mr. Konstantin Starodubets from Vesna Center for Human Rights. Ms. Urte Andriukaitytė, Civic Resilience Initiative. Ms. Aušra Raulušonytė, our Create Lithuania alumni. Mr. Julius Zubė, Development Cooperation Advisor at NRD Companies. And finally, Mr. Žilvinas Švedkauskas, Osmos Global Partnerships. So again, warm welcome to all of you. As you see, we have a really large panel, so I will appreciate your support in making this interesting, but also short and concise. So let me jump in immediately and start with you, Mrs. Wang. So during the first session, we heard a lot about Ukraine, about our support to Ukraine. Ukraine continues to suffer from brutal Russia's aggression, and it's clear that this is probably the most pertinent challenge for us, for Lithuania, and for our region. So I would like to ask you, how do Taiwanese people see global challenges? Which ones are relevant to them, and how you use your development cooperation to contribute to solving those challenges?
Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here, sitting with a very esteemed panel. And to Taiwan, I think there are many global challenges, not only to the people in Taiwan, but globally, including the climate change, the pandemics, the natural disasters, the public health issues. However, we think that the most pressing issues and which poses a common threat to the world will be the expansion of authoritarianism. And that's why the Ukraine is suffering. and we try our best to try to contribute, because we understand that today's Ukraine might be tomorrow's Taiwan, and this is not the only reason that Taiwan tried to help. This is a very small world, and no one is safe until everyone is safe. And so I was personally involved in when the total aggression took place more than 2 years ago. And the outpouring of Taiwan's people's support from ordinary people, from it's overwhelmingly, and jointly and with the government, we were able to provide not only the assistance in funding, but also provide some assistance in providing the material they need in a very timely fashion. And looking back, maybe that was not the best strategy, because it took it cost a lot for us to send all those goods, because that was hundreds of tons. I think we tried to charter a cargo airplane to ship those material. And as I mentioned, looking back, that might not be the best strategy, but it's how deeply concerned and how much the Taiwanese people care. And so I will end here first, and then we'll continue. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may have, you mentioned very rightly, we are living in a small world. It's global challenges, but at the same time, they are also local, right? So I would like also to ask of your experience in using technologies in particular, because I think when we talk about global challenges, we often refer to technologies, innovative solutions, and we are saying that they may contribute, they may help with solving those big issues. So can you please share like 1 or 2 examples how Taiwan is using technologies to strengthen their institutions, to enhance civic engagement? So maybe just a few words on that. Thanks.
Yes, I take pride in proclaiming Taiwan as a high-tech powerhouse in the world. And take the COVID, for example, when we realized that at the very first stage that the facial mask is exactly what we need, we were able to mobilize our private sectors, our industry, who have different expertise on how to manufacture those fast masks very quickly, because before the COVID, the industry we tried to outsource to other countries, because that's a very low profit business. However, we were able to mobilize our business people. We built up we call it the National Alliance. We were able to assemble the manufacturing line very quickly, and then we start to manufacture those fast masks. And it's not only for our own people's need. Before we feel that that's sufficient for our own people, and remember, Taiwan is a population of 23 million people. And before we had sufficient for our own people, we start to contribute those fast masks to other countries who are in need, and also to the like-minded countries. It's a cycle of virtue, because many countries, including Lithuania, donate the vaccine to Taiwan. And that's one example. And another example is that Taiwan is the front line in terms of against the FEMI attack. And I think the strength comes within from our civil society organizations. They use different methodology, use different technology to dictate those FEMI attack. And also, this is a very organic development, and also a very bottom-up development for our strategy to fight against the FEMI campaign. So those are the 2 examples, I think.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Wong. Indeed, we touched upon authoritarian tendencies, which are definitely a global challenge. The second one is probably rising disinformation and foreign information manipulation. So with that, let me pass to Urte. Civic Resilience Initiative has been engaged in many projects building resilience, combating disinformation, both in Lithuania, in the region, and in other countries outside, so namely in Eastern Partnership countries. Could you please briefly present your current activities and how you help our partners to combat disinformation?
So thank you for the question. Hello everyone, pleasure to be here. For those unaware, CRI, or Civic Resilience Initiative, also known as, is a organization, non-profit, non-governmental, focusing on raising the resilience in Lithuanian society through various projects. And mostly we are focusing on engaging education, increasing the resilience in the spheres of security, media literacy, disinformation, cyber, civil, and grassroots activities. And we are engaged in very different platforms of activities, such as starting from lessons at schools or lectures at the universities. We're providing workshops for lecturers and teachers to raise the awareness of disinformation and trying to raise that resilience in our society. We see the resilient society as the ground of fighting disinformation, because we see that it's impossible to build a house without having a strong base for it. So even though the government is trying its best to get involved in this whole fight, but as long as the major part of whole society is not engaged and is not unaware of the problem and the size of the threat of disinformation, it's not leading anywhere. So across different activities, there are very notable ones. For example, in cooperation with Taiwan Foundation for Democracy, we issued a very well-received report on Russian and Chinese disinformation in Taiwan. So we're also recognized by Google, and now we're executing a very constant media monitoring of 3 Baltic countries, and it's a huge step for us as organization, but also a huge step for fight against disinformation for all 3 Baltic countries. So maybe these 2 would be the examples of international collaboration.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. You have highlighted the resilient society, and this is probably one of the most important issues and probably one of the most important challenges, because we are still not there yet. So with this, let me switch to Ms. Marcela Lukita from Moldova. And definitely Moldova has been at the front line of hybrid threats, disinformation, recently electoral manipulation. Could you please briefly tell, with your fresh experience just being in election cycle right now, what you are doing at the Center for Strategic Communication and Countering Disinformation? So how your day looks like? How do you try actually to do this, what we are talking, just to bring this to practice?
Dear ladies and gentlemen, picture, if you will, a land of green rolling hills, endless vineyards, and a sweet scent of blossoming orchards. This is Moldova, a hidden gem at the gateway to the European Union. Moldova may lack seas, mountains, or gas fields, but it is rich in its people. Good, hardworking, intelligent, and determined to make a change. Of course, history leaves its traces, and Moldova bears the legacy of its Soviet past, a period that has deeply influenced our people, our culture, and our political landscape. However, today, Moldova is on the path towards a European future. And in this era of transition, Moldova faces new challenges, particularly in the context of the hybrid warfare, where foreign information manipulation and interference are becoming increasingly prevalent. The threats we face today are not about tanks and soldiers, are about disinformation, propaganda, disinformation, cyber attacks, organized protests, so a lot of efforts to destabilize. However, the last week referendum has proven that despite extensive propaganda and disinformation efforts and significant foreign interference, Moldovan people found the resilience to choose European path. And this is also because of Moldovan authorities who took important, and I would dare to say bold, measures to protect its sovereignty and safeguard the future of its people. And one of these measures was the establishment of the Center for Strategic Communication and Countering Disinformation. This institution stands as a testament to Moldova's unwavering commitment to safeguarding its sovereignty and ensure that its journey to the European identity is resilient and robust. But why, you may ask me, was it necessary to create a new institution in the state architecture, an autonomous, separate institution being under parliamentary control? So what makes this center so vital for the local context, but also for the regional context? In the last 2-3 years, the actor that is mentioned in our national security strategy as the threat number one to the security has systemically targeted our vulnerabilities. And Moldova authorities responded with administrative measures. But this did not cause the aimed result. The enemy shifted its strategy. It became even more aggressive. So last year, Moldova's response took a critical turn, and the establishment of the center became a key measure in countering these threats. The mission of the center is to strengthen interinstitutional efforts to strategically communicate on national interest, to counter disinformation, to countering info manipulation, but also coordinated actions that could jeopardize these very interests. The center has a dual mandate. One, strategic communication on national interest in order to increase and strengthen resilience. And the second, to countering disinformation, which threatens these interests. One of the milestones, or one of the most important milestones in this journey, has been the approval by the Parliament of the concept on strategic communication. This means that the level of strategic communication, or the topic of strategic communication, has been raised to the level of national policy. The concept takes into consideration the national interests mentioned in the national security strategy and converts them into 5 strategic communication pillars or topics. EU accession as a meta theme for this year, social cohesion, robust economy, strong defense and security sector, and last but not least, national resilience in a volatile regional context. To fulfill its mission, the center builds platforms and frameworks for dialogue, providing access to data, tools, and expertise, proposes actions to countering info disinformation and interference, tailoring its recommendation particularly to the specific needs of its partner institution, and implements preventive and proactive measures aimed at reducing vulnerabilities in society and the state system. To enhance our efforts, Center has developed two key national instruments: National Information Resilience Index and Index of Systemic Vulnerabilities. So these tools allow us to measure and assess how resilient Moldova is to information manipulation and other forms of interference, providing the necessary data to tailor targeted actions. I think I'll stop here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, very interesting. In particular, what you are telling us about the practical tools you have established, especially for monitoring the situation, which is also very important. May I follow up immediately? Well, many governments, including my own Lithuanian government, are supporting Moldova in terms of fighting foreign information manipulation and other hybrid threats. How do you evaluate this support? Is this targeted enough? Is this sufficient? Like, does it come through the right channels? What kind of support seems to be most effective and efficient to you?
Foreign information manipulation and interference has evolved to a global level. It became a weapon to destabilize nations, to erode public trust in state institutions, to divide nations, and the support of development partners is crucial. Our collaboration with Lithuania is focused on addressing some of the most pressing challenges to our informational space, and the Lithuanian support is of great importance in advancing our capacities in identifying and countering FIMI. So through this cooperation, we gain insights and adopt tools to recognize and respond to hostile information tactics aimed at undermining our societal cohesion, but also stability. We are keen to understand, to learn your approach towards resilience building, because Lithuanian resilience building philosophy is not just some kind of defense stance, but it is an integrated and proactive approach to national security.
Yes, thank you very much for highlighting this. Indeed, I believe in this topic, Lithuania has valid experience we can share with others. And as we again started talking about, let's say these narratives, probably it's a kind of also fight of narratives, right? We are experiencing right now. And we have probably to acknowledge that largest proportion of world's population actually live in autocracies. Like, I believe latest statistics, I was just checking a few days ago, around 71% of world's population live in autocracies. We see clear tendencies that this is on the rise. Then it brings a lot of different negative effects. One of them is also relates to human rights violations. And let me now turn to Mr. Konstantin Starodubets from Vesna Center for Human Rights. How do you see these tendencies of rising disinformation, rising authoritarianism from human rights activist perspective?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your question. Thank you for this opportunity to speak here. It is true that it is a very alarming trend, and Belarus is a part of this trend, unfortunately. Some even describe Belarus as a totalitarian regime, and unfortunately it has many traits of it. Total control of the society, the demolished media space, civil society, no political sphere, paralyzing fear in the society, spy mania, and many other things. There is one more alarming trend related to this. This is transnational repression. Tens of thousands of Belarusians who were forced to leave Belarus fearing repression, found their second home in the neighboring countries of Lithuania and Poland in the first place, but they're still today are victims of this transnational repression. And it is therefore very important to note that both my organization and our partners and the Lithuanian government have been doing a lot to fight this transnational repression. Lithuania's recent submission to the International Criminal Court, in which Viesna, I would be proud to say, played a small but important role, is a very important step forward towards accountability and justice.
Yes, thank you very much for highlighting this. And do you have any recommendations or advices, perhaps, what kind of effective tools we could use to fight these tendencies?
Well, there is no silver bullet, of course, and it is looking back at, or looking now at existing and past regimes of similar character as Belarus. We should definitely admit that that's a marathon. It takes a lot of small steps to move forward. But if I have to choose 3 key steps that are totally essential to secure a lasting change in the long run, that would be accountability. That means collecting and preserving evidence and testimonies, which is what my organization Viesna has been doing for 4 years. It is also seek for justice for the victims. It involves the political will of democracies, and therefore I once again call on Western democracies to join the efforts by Lithuania and now Latvia and Poland in seeking international justice within the International Criminal Court. It is also something that we do is direct and swift support to the victims of repression, because it's where urgency is key. If victims do not receive support now and today, and here now, it is very often too late to provide them with assistance tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. Speedy action, I think, what we need actually right now. Let me now switch to Ms. Aušra Raulušonytė, our alumni from Create Lithuania program, who has been working on fostering green innovation through our development cooperation instruments. And perhaps let me also make a link with what we have just heard. That we see, we can hear many autocratic leaders actually denying the existence of climate change, also spreading a lot of disinformation, also manipulating that climate change agenda is a kind of Western agenda, right? So do you have the explanation to this, and perhaps you have some immediate thoughts on how we could combat this narrative?
Hello, everyone. So I would like to congratulate you all on this conference, the local development cooperation community and also the international that are here. And most of all, I would like to congratulate the first generation of Create Ukraine, because I'm myself an alumni of Create Lithuania, and also I see the colleague sitting here is also an alumni, so congratulations. And thank you, Davila, for a very, very important question. I think when we look at the countries worldwide, we see a lot of misinformation on climate change and also manipulating information, as you just mentioned. And perhaps the immediate reasons that we think about is the rapid here and now economic growth that countries seek for. For example, we can look at Brazil, at the rainforest with the previous leader, and also if we look at Iran, for example, we can see another reason, maybe some kind of political manipulation where the international community is asked to remove the sanctions as a prerequisite to enter the Paris Agreement. And also, of course, we see other countries like Russia, Turkey, China maybe moved forward, but also it's a very difficult balance between the green innovation and also this more like internal understanding of the climate change. And some also interesting examples would be USA, where we see such an important international actor withdrawing from the Paris Agreement for 4 years. And what results it brings is the fact that by now we haven't met a lot of goals of the Sustainable Development Agenda. We only 17% forward, and also Paris Agreement. We can predict that by the end of the century we would be hotter by 2.7%, even though we all agreed maybe we should stop at 1.5. And what could be the solutions? Perhaps also, again, no silver bullet, no panacea for all these things, but what we should focus on is spreading information about this global scientific consensus, in which is not only the Western world, as you mentioned, but also all international community members, and specifically scientists, agree on climate change. We should look at we shouldn't speak generally, but look at the local communities. We should ask people, do they experience this climate change? Even if we look at the countries that are not in the global south, like the United States of America, we see that almost 80% of the citizens say they experience the real consequences of the climate change. Also, when we look at the economy, I think already the world moved on to the second step, not only thinking about economic growth, but also about sustainable economic growth. So this is what we should emphasize and make it some kind of course, it's important as a basis, but making it some kind of trend, some kind of coalition of countries that agree on that, and other countries want to join that coalitions.
And probably for local people, local communities, it's really important to see some tangible solutions, perhaps maybe even small ones, but what can be delivered and what can help them with their immediate problems, right? So Aušra, maybe you have just a few examples on the value add of Lithuania as a donor with obviously limited resources, but what we could do, what we could add to this.
Yeah, so this was actually my task in the project that I worked on for half a year here at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the project was about finding what we as Lithuania have and what could be the immediate solutions, maybe now, to the countries to face specific challenges, not only like climate change challenges, but all these goals from Sustainable Development Agenda, like sustainable cities, human rights, education, and so on. And one of the results that we have created together with the Development Cooperation Department is the Green Solutions Catalog that you could also pick up at the entrance before the conference. And here we have solutions that already are in foreign countries like Nando, biofertilizers, Global Energy Park, which is starting a green hydrogen project in Brazil, also Solet with solar electricity. We also have many new solutions, and we keep adding the solutions that we find in Lithuania after meeting more and more stakeholders. Just a few to mention is EcoGrant, with the plastic waste management consultancy, also some used cars parts, also Provectus Predicivus, this is a Latin name, And we can see that we as Lithuania have something new to offer, and if we look at the vision that we have, these are only like baby steps that we started doing with the catalog, but if we look at the future, we have a potential for great solutions that integrate different things that we already have. For example, the sound insulation for the railways and roads, and also we have a business that collects waste and creates those noise barriers, and it could be integrated together with, for example, Solitech solutions to use these solar panels not only for the solar energy collection but also for the noise insulation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shosha, for those practical examples. So as we already started talking about the practical things and practical added value what Lithuania can offer to our partners, let me switch to Mr. Julius Zube from NRD Companies. And NRD Companies has been involved in many development cooperation projects in digitalization, in registries, etc. There's a lot. From your experience, how can digital solutions be leveraged to improve resilience?
Thank you, Davila. Hello, everyone. So yes, our company group has been active for more than 20 years, and I'm pretty sure I can confidently say that we are the most active private sector company from Lithuania that is engaged in development cooperation. Our DNA is specifically in building registries. We have built more than 50 registries in 50 different countries, specifically in sub-Saharan Africa, as well as in Europe and other parts of the world. And at this point, we specialize in two things. First of all, is building the core systems that enable the possibility of digital government, and as well as supporting the implementation of reforms that are needed for e-government to take place in first of all. And I believe that the second part is where we really utilize Lithuania's experience. A lot of our experts are actually former public servants in Lithuania who took charge in the reforms that made us an extremely successful digital nation. And we are more than happy to share this experience, even with cooperation with the current institutions. For example, in Somalia, we supported their National Bureau for Statistics together with the Lithuanian Statistics Department. We cooperate quite closely with Lithuanian Center of Registers, also with Lithuanian Tax Inspectorate when supporting countries with their tax reforms, as well as most notably Lithuania's GovTech Lab, where we are spreading Lithuania's experience and great success with this initiative. And when you raise this question, the first thing that comes to my mind is that we always say that the digital part is the easiest part in digital transformation reforms and building resilience in this sense. The hardest part is how do you ensure that the institutions properly govern and embrace these digital solutions? Because, well, from our experience, what is resilience? Resilience is at the same time being able to ensure that stability is in the country, but at the same time being able to tackle challenges as they come and being flexible and innovative. And this is where we believe we can share a lot of experience and expertise. So for example, in terms, but jumping first for the stable thing, the government needs certain core digital enablers to be able to function as a modern 21st century government. It needs core government systems, civil registers, business registries, government service platforms. We support, for example, the government of Belize with establishing all of these. Recently, we established the first business registry in the country that is digital. We are currently establishing civil registry system. Actually, then another case in Lesotho, we are launching one of the newest solutions, the e-invoicing solution, which is actually in the catalog. So just a little bit of self-promotion. But at the same time, when we establish these core systems, we understand that there is a need of a little bit of hand-holding and supporting the actual implementation of reforms that enable these systems. So yeah, that is the main thing when referring to the core government systems, but then also enabling the governments to learn how to adapt, learn how to be innovative, learned how to tackle the challenges of 21st century. We like to call these wicked problems that we simply do not know the answer to. And for example, we know that the GovTech Lab, Lithuania's experience is extremely useful here. We cooperated with GovTech Lab Lithuania, for example, with a project in Trinidad and Tobago, an island country that is slowly trying to move from basing its whole economy on oil and trying to establish more digital economy. So we, together with GovTech Lab Lithuania experts, hand-holded them as they were launching their own GovTech Lab, trying to create innovative government solutions. So I think there's a lot of experience that we can share. And for example, after this project, already the government of Nigeria has approached us, interested in this. Actually, probably one of the most interesting experiences of my life was 2 weeks ago traveling to Palestine, visiting West Bank together with Lithuanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and National Association Infobalt, where we conducted several workshops with public authorities, startups, as well as the civil society, European Union delegation, as well as the World Bank, showing Lithuania's experience in facilitating innovation in public sector and digital solutions. And I believe there's a lot of potential. We can create a lot of good with exporting our experience, specifically experience, not the digital solutions themselves. So that's emphasis.
Okay, thank you. That's indeed very, very interesting. And you mentioned that probably the digital part is like the easiest part, right? So it's much more difficult to change institutional culture and also to build these so-called, let's say, basics. So the transparency, good governance, collaboration, coordination among institutions. So this is like the hardest probably thing. But often, I guess, with digitalization projects, sometimes we see the approach that our partners seek some quick fixes and some probably short-term solutions. But how to guide them and to help to move to these longer-term, let's say, well, the solutions involving those things which I just mentioned, the good governance, transparency, etc. Do you have any advice on that?
Certainly. I think one thing to acknowledge even before stepping in that zone is to, I've been studying international development cooperation since 2012, and I think one of the key challenges in our current development cooperation system as a whole, globally, is that we often focus on, first of all, seeing how we can communicate, and first of all, public communication of projects, and only then going and seeing how we can actually implement the reforms that we really like to brag about and celebrate. For example, as was mentioned by Ausra, so, right, we go to a conference, we achieve an agreement, and then the real work starts after that, not the conference. Of course, conferences are important, but the real work happens after that and implementation of these reforms. So I think that is the key factor to know first. Then one thing that, again, I would like to refer our experience in Trinidad and Tobago, the specific request that we have been asked by Inter-American Development Bank, which asked for this project, was please provide hand-holding. So hand-holding refers not simply coming and telling we did this, so you did this, and there are recommendations, good luck, but actually staying with the institution throughout the entire process of launching the reform and even piloting it. So I think we need to focus more on these things that maybe are not as attractive in terms of public communication about the successful projects, but the ones that actually do the job right. So that is one thing that I really, really would like to emphasize. Another thing is, I think the Lithuanians should really embrace the current communication message that we have about co-creation. We actually took it in our own projects because I think it's a really beautiful concept. And the idea of co-creation from our perspective is that we share you what Lithuania has experienced and you adapt it to your own local needs and priorities. For example, the same is with GovTech Lab. We understood that in Trinidad and Tobago, they wanted to enable their own developer community. In Lithuania, we focused more on making e-government more efficient. So we helped them to tailor their own GovTech Lab according to their own needs with our lessons learned. Same, for example, we discussed with Nigeria, same with West Bank. So I think embracing these two things could lead to an extremely positive change, and we should embrace it ourselves.
Yeah, thank you for those. Indeed, it's probably no one of us here or elsewhere has some kind of simple solutions which you just deliver and those work. This is not the case. So it's about working together. It's about co-creating, right? And let me now turn to Žilvinas Švedkauskas, another I believe co-creator and promoter of what Lithuania has to offer to our partners. At least for me, Osmos is best known for its Digital Explorers initiative. But perhaps we could start with you briefly presenting your current scope of work. I believe it also expanded quite significantly.
Right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. Julius stole part of my punchlines, so I will be brief. I'm representing Osmos, which is a Lithuanian think and do tank. Osmos stands for Movement of People, Knowledge, Talents, and Trade. And Digital Explorers, our flagship, it's really an embodiment of everything that is encapsulated in Osmos. The project, funded by the EU Commission, which started in 2019, was the first of its kind legal migration pathway for Nigerian tech talents to come and work in Lithuanian IT companies. We had 13 Lithuanian businesses stepping on board and 30 young Nigerians taking the challenge of coming over to Lithuania in the midst of a very cold and windy Lithuanian winter. It's a success story to some extent, and we were encouraged to continue and scale the practice. So until the end of the next year, we're looking to have even more people benefiting from the program, meaning that their careers will be accelerated through training and tailored matching opportunities, through internships, job placements, in a scaled number of countries. So it's not only Nigeria and Lithuania now, it's the Baltics and Nigeria, Kenya, Armenia, and Iraq. Shout out to Ambassador there in the back, who's supporting the initiative throughout. Digital Explorers, that's an unusual name for a development cooperation project, I would assume, but it means a lot to us because from specialists to companies to institutions that decide to jump on this journey with us, everybody is a digital explorer in some way. As I mentioned, until the end of next year, the community of those 30 Nigerians should grow up to 200 of talents that would be accelerated, not only in Lithuania or the Baltics. We're looking to host a number of local internships in partner countries. So we're gonna grow the community of businesses as well that are sort of following the philosophy of Digital Explorers. And then, just to give you a concrete example, when it comes to institutions, sort of the ones that set the background and create the regulatory environment for such initiatives to function, we're also hosting public knowledge exchange activities. So next week, November 7th, the Data Agency of Lithuania and the Digital Solutions Agency of Lithuania will meet with the Prime Minister's Office of Iraq and the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister of Iraqi Kurdistan. Because in our work and in this formula of Digital Explorers, we try to think holistically, try to connect all the dots and make sure that the little number of people that we train or sort of nudge to continue on their tech careers, it would not stop there. It would create sort of a new movement, a spark to some extent. So we also change the frameworks that they're developing under, be it educational environments or business regulatory environments, or partnerships with public institutions.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was also very interesting that you kind of connected two tracks. So one track of skills development, which looks like really traditional development cooperation project, but at the same time you also incorporated this like legal migration track, which has been, and I believe still is, a kind of a big problem for many countries, for Europe as well. So this was probably a bit of an innovation, right? Like for development cooperation. Like what kind of benefits do you see in this? And maybe you have also ideas what other tracks could be connected in the similar way.
Well, I think bringing in the movement mobility aspect to development cooperation allows you to connect people face to face. The slogan of the project is connecting ICT markets through individual journeys. And that is especially important when you're working with countries further afield, Nigeria, Kenya, because you cannot really do anything if you don't have trust, and you will not have trust over a Zoom call. So you need people moving, people becoming ambassadors of their countries, or Lithuanian businesses becoming ambassadors of Lithuania as a destination for talents, destination for international cooperation. Because from our position, I guess some would assume that we're bringing the value. I would say it's the other way around, and it's partly in this spirit of partnerships. It's about creating mutual benefits and convincing specialists in Kenya or in Nigeria that they should work with Lithuanian companies, not Estonian, not Belgian, not German. And for that, first and foremost, for a country of our size, we need real meetings. Therefore, we host business missions. We move people from place A to B, which is super complicated at times. Last week, we just hosted a relocation mission in South Africa. So we have a group of digital explorers who were offered internships in Lithuania, people working in data analytics that are wanted and sought after by Lithuanian companies, but to move them from Nigeria or Kenya, we firstly need to take them to South Africa because we're lacking infrastructure. So I would say Digital Explorers is sort of also a stress test for the infrastructure that we have for international development. Because again, it would not work over Zoom. You have to move people. You have to make that movement seamless to some extent. And there's still a lot of work to do there.
Yeah, thank you. That really sounds as a kind of advice for us at the MFA, right? Also planning and formulating our development cooperation policies. So thanks also for that. Let me just make a last quick round, just asking what do you see, just very, very briefly, as a kind of key thing in resilience building from each of your field or topics? So just I start again with Mrs. Wong.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I would like to get back to the campaign against the resilience build up against the FEMI. I would like to share a finding of Mr. Ben Graham Jones, who is the election observer since Lithuania just concluded US Seimas election. And back in January, Taiwan had a presidential election, and also the U.S. presidential election will be held in couple of days. So the findings of Mr. Jones was that the strength serves as the core of Taiwan's resilience against FEMI, and also for your information. The outcome of our presidential election was it's unprecedentedly the ruling party won for the third consecutive time for the presidency, and also the opposition who won the parliament by 1 seat. So we called it that the only loser is the PRC, because they've been waging the FEMI war against Taiwan to force the people to elect the candidate that they preferred. However, the ruling party won because they won the presidency, and the opposition also won because they won the parliament by 1 seat. And the people of Taiwan won because we voted to send a very strong message to PRC that our people prefer the democratic way of living. However, we want the check and balance in the parliament. And so, as I mentioned, the only loser was the the opponent who waged the FEMI campaign. And the strength serves as the core of Taiwan's resilience against FEMI. Mr. Jones concluded he called it the power model. It's purpose-driven, and it was organic, and it's whole society. And also it is evolving, and it's also remit-bound. Maybe it's just I try to pick up the word power. And remit-bound, I believe, is that's transferable, that can be shared with our like-minded partners. And to sum up, it doesn't mean that Taiwan is now bulletproof. It's still very vulnerable because as our strategy evolves, the opponents, their strategy is evolving as well. And in addition to that, the resources they put in, there's a huge disparity between the resources. So I think we will need more collective efforts from our like-minded partners, and more collaborative efforts as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, as we have to wrap up. I will give just the word to Marcella.
Very, very briefly. Education, development of critical thinking, strategic communication, and results, deliverable results in different sectors.
Yeah, thank you very much for this very quick reply. And with that, we wrap up this session. I believe we talked a lot about partnerships, about community engagement, about connecting different tracks. So that's probably something to take away and to actually do the things. That's the main message. Thank you very much.
All the panelists to be very active, very comprehensive, with a lot of new ideas and proposals. And I believe it's pretty clear that the resilience of each of us is deeply interconnected, and our collective strength depends on the solidarity and support we extend to one another in overcoming challenges. And as we come to the end of the official part of the conference, I would like to invite Vice Minister Mr. Šatūnas to deliver his closing remarks.
Okay, so hello everyone. Really a pleasure to be here and honor with you. And I was thinking and chatting with my colleagues what I should say. And actually I was participating in the same conference last year, and I think we have a big difference in what we're comparing last year and this year. Last year we were a little bit reflecting what we have been doing the last 20 years, what we have, lost in our development cooperation policy, what was missing. But I think this year is very different because we are looking already what we have gained over the year and what we are going to do in next year. We have clear ideas, plans and visions for the next year. Unfortunately, why it is so? Because we see that there are a lot of efforts to destroy international order, a lot of efforts try to destroy what we have been creating, and that's why we need a lot of partnership to work together to rebuild. So resilience is becoming it actually became a reality of our everyday life. But we cannot be resilient only by ourselves. So that's why all these partnerships, what we have today, and I'm extremely thankful to the Taiwan and being with us today here. Extremely happy and thankful to Ireland who trusted in us that we can do a lot in Ukraine, and I think they will not be disappointed, and the commitment that we made today will just grow. Same goes to Andorra, same goes to European Commission, and same goes to other countries that are working with us to rebuild Ukraine. I know that we're trying to look for new opportunities with Japan, we're looking for new opportunities with European Commission, so it seems that we are expanding not only network, but understanding what we should do and how we should operate there together. So we have done a lot, but the biggest challenge is still ahead of us. And you all know what we focused and how we have projected our activities for the next year, especially in the Ukraine. So for us, it's pretty clear. We adopted the new guidelines of our support in Ukraine, where the priorities will be education. So thank you, Italian company, working with us and moving further. So I hope that Rome conference will be also dedicating a lot to education. Then it's energy, then it's Euro integration, and here we are working in partnership with the European Commission. And finally, this big project for Lithuania rehabilitation. It's a huge project for us, for Lithuania. Sometimes I'm afraid, but because it's really a totally new terrain that we're entering. But we're learning, and I think that our CPMA, Development Cooperation Agency, and thank you Lydia and her team, working closely with us, with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because that's becoming a normal modus operandi when our foreign policy transforms into real actions. So I think that we would have not been able to do all these things together if there is no understanding and partnerships. So for me, this conference is a great next step for the next year. I just wish everyone to continue in the same mood. We will need to have more partnerships. I hope next year, not only the amounts of money will grow, but the scale of our partnerships and member countries will grow. And we definitely wish Ukraine all the best. We need to help the country to win the victory, because if they are not going to win, all our efforts, they will be destroyed, frankly speaking, as it was destroyed the school in Irpin, I guess. No, in Avdiivka, yeah, in Avdiivka. We rebuilt the school, we built a school, but there is no school anymore there. Why? Because we were not quick enough to help Ukraine to defend itself. So it's going to be, I don't want to be a bad prophet, but we need to help the country to defend itself and to win. And then we are entering slowly into the next phase. Here at the national level, international level, at European level, clearly we're looking for the next political cycle, where we'll engage with Ukraine as much as we can on the reconstruction and Euro integration path. But this learning curve for us is not only Ukraine. We are super happy and interested in working with the other European Union member states in African continent, where we are learning. So we are happy to contribute and to work together with either it's Germany or other countries in African countries. But we're happy to share what we know and what we can do in Ukraine. So many thanks to this community, for international partners, but for our NGOs, for our businesses, for media, and definitely for our diplomats making all these projects happen. So thanks and good luck. And I hope that you're going to have still a very practical seminar, which is also important. So thank you.
So, dear Vice Minister, really thank you very much for a very nice wrap-up of our today's discussions. And before closing, I would like to come with the two announcements. Now, we are delighted to invite all of you for informal lunch. I think this would be one more opportunity for additional network and to discuss, to continue our discussions. And also I would like to invite all our development cooperation ecosystem participants to attend the workshop after the lunch, which starts at 2:00. And in this workshop, we already will start very practically to think about the future, because the workshop will be dedicated for some kind of recommendations and some kind of preparations for the strategic directions of our development cooperation for period 2026-2030 for the next period of our of our guiding developments, and I am really very truly grateful that the National Non-Governmental Development Cooperation Organizations platform agreed to be the moderator of this workshop. So really thank you very much for them. And I think now this brings me to the conclusions. Once again, thank you very much for all of you for your participation, for active questions, and really looking forward to meet all of you in other future our events. Thank you very much and have a nice lunch. Thank you.